Coming off one of our most popular episodes in Unofficial Commentators history, ranking amongst the quickest to get to milestone amount of views, we welcome Paki back to the fray on the Unofficial Commentators. This week we're going to cover the UFC, recapping UFC on Fox. It doesn't sound like a big main event card, but trust me, it was. I go back to my roots as a wrestling fan and discuss the fallout of the Royal Rumble. We talk about current events in the NBA and much, much more. Guys, this is an episode you don't want to miss of the Unofficial Commentators. And the episode starts now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, the Unofficial Commentators, Mr. J98, Paki, both your hosts, back as usual. Remember, guys, remember to follow us at UC_podcast on Twitter and at Unofficial Commentators on Instagram. Also, if you have any comments, yeah, that's right, Jay, sprinkle the salt right there, baby. If you have any comments or suggestions or things you'd like for us to talk about, email us, unofficialcommentators@gmail.com. Of course, I have to mention, Podomatic.com is where we have our audio podcast where you can download it and listen to it. And, of course, on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, Unofficial Commentators. Jay, take it away.
Man, the first month of 2017 is over. Wow, that feel like it just breezed by. Last week we celebrated.
So much work, man.
I feel like that's all I've done this week, man. It's just been this whole year, 2017, has been all work. Last weekend, it was the celebration of the Chinese New Year. It is officially the year of the cock, Paki. How do you feel about that?
Well, Happy New Year to our friend Donnie. There you go. You got a free shout out, bro. Donnie, that's the only Chinese guy I know.
Wow, that's saying a lot. Well, Donnie had invited you to Ruta 156, Ruta 156 to watch the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But yeah, happy year of the cock, my friend.
Yeah, man, definitely. Everybody loves cocks, right?
Moving on. Okay, so
I don't know. There's cockfighting here in the DR. You know, it's legal. Everybody loves it.
Sure, I bet they do. I had a really tough day, man. So I'm back to drinking. Don't even ask me what I'm drinking today. Man.
What is that? A sangria?
Don't ask, don't tell, my friend. All right.
All right.
So let's not waste any time, man. There's a lot of things that we want to talk about, so let's just get right into it. So in the UFC, we had a UFC on Fox this weekend. I made the critical mistake of tuning in at 10 o'clock thinking it was like all other UFC events, but it was on Fox, regular network TV, also in Denver, so they were working off Denver time. And I missed everything except for the main event. Right when I was tuning in, thinking I was going to get there early to watch all the fights, I just saw the very last one. I didn't especially like the results, but speaking of results, it seemed to me, at least in my opinion, that all of the favorites lost. So you want to give us a quick recap since you did see all the fights?
Yeah, not just that, Jay. I'm going to tell our listeners and our followers, please, give these fight nights a chance. Every time these fight cards, they don't seem to have a lot of talent, boy, they're pretty good. Every single fight was a finish in the main card, which was fun. And, of course, we're only going to talk about the last two, Donald Cerrone versus Masvidal. Everybody expected Donald Cerrone to pretty much win this one easy. He's been looking great his last couple of fights, but it looks like Cerrone's just fighting too much. He looked pretty slow in this fight. His feet were heavy. His head work wasn't as good as usual.
Whoa. And
Masvidal clearly packs a really good punch. Donald Cerrone was trying to get those combos in, but every time the combo was coming in, he would get a counter. So credit to Masvidal for the preparation, and obviously he looked a lot quicker. Until, by the way, Cerrone got literally saved by the bell. He was knocked out, and it could have been as easy as it could have been a stoppage. It was just them stopping the round. So I thought the fight was over, but it was actually the round that was over because he was knocked out. He came back in the second round, and he was not recovered. He was not recovered. At least he was able to stand, but he was clearly knocked out. And then Masvidal knocked him out for a second time, man. It was pretty humiliating to see Cerrone like this. I mean, but hey, kudos to Masvidal. He's clearly an up-and-coming fighter. His boxing skills were on point. His counters were on point. And, of course, his power was very, very impressive.
Okay, a lot of things I want to add to that, and I hope this doesn't sound like me repeating, but first of all, yes, I do agree with you. So far, for as far back as I can remember, the fight nights are tending to be more exciting in terms of fights and finishes than the actual UFC pay-per-views. I'm thinking that it's having to do with matching up such equal talent that they're hesitant to strike. No one wants to make a mistake, so they just go through. Instead of having like a feel-out minute at the beginning of round one, they just kind of go through rounds 1, 2, and they don't really get to engage until the very last round, if at all. So, that from that perspective. In terms of Cowboy, yes, I do believe he's spreading himself too thin. I don't necessarily understand the reason. I may have to do a little bit more background work on him, but I don't know if he's like from Denver, but he was really, really itching to fight in Denver. Like it was something that meant a whole big deal to him. So even though he defeated Matt Brown, which was considered a lot harder fight than Masvidal, by the way, it's Masvidal. I don't know what the hell you were saying.
Oh, whatever. Masvidal. All right.
Yeah, Masvidal. He didn't have it. He looked like he trained too much. He did look tired. It's not like he didn't take any damage in his previous fights, and he's fighting damn near every month. The same thing happened to him when he was fighting at 155. He was climbing up the ranks by fighting over and over and over, getting his ratings up until he finally got a title match. But by that time, he was just exhausted. Like, it didn't take much for RDA to just come in there and whoop his butt. And this was...
in this fight...
But,
in this fight, you could maybe blame it on the elevation since it was in Denver.
I don't want to hear that
but
shit.
It seemed to have only affected him. So either he wasn't training properly for that elevation, or it's just simply, as we said, the first thing, he's just getting tired out. He's getting worn out.
I heard UFC Unfiltered. Dana White was on this week, and he said that whether Cowboy Cerrone likes it or not, he has fought a whole bunch. He's made a bunch of money that he can store away. The fact that he fights so often, it means that you didn't necessarily invest, hundreds and thousands of dollars into gym fees and things like that for many months in preparation. It's kind of a constant thing. You're paying your gym, you're getting paid, you're paying off your debts, and then you just kind of continue. So he's made enough money both off fights and sponsors where he can afford to take a break. And whether he likes it or not, Dana White, who is notorious for backing down off whatever position he has, he said that he's not going to fight anymore. I mean, not anymore, but, he's going to have a bit of a layoff.
It's understandable. I mean, he does need to do it. I think he's been fighting way too much. Even after changing weight classes, I mean, clearly he's looking for – it's all about the money. That's the only thing I can think about Cerrone taking all these fights, because it's not even like he's looking towards a title fight. He's not even calling out anybody anymore. He's just trying to fight as much as he can. So
yes,
he's going to have to take a break.
Yes. I don't know if I'm going to say that it's all about the money, though. He seems from interviews, I don't know the man personally. I've never shaken his hand. I haven't, had him over for dinner. But it seems from his interviews that he enjoys the actual fights, like the competition. Like he seems like a dude that does much more dangerous things when he's not fighting. So a way for him to keep his sanity is to actually train all the time, so he's always prepping for a fight. That just goes to the point that I don't know if it's always necessarily about money, but he does love to fight, so now he's going to have to find other things to do. And if you ever hear this guy in any interviews, man, he's into extreme sports. He rides horses, he shoots guns, he does water skiing, skydiving, all kinds of weird shit. So he'll find ways to keep busy. Hopefully he doesn't end up like, what was his name? I think it was Evan Dunham, the dude that went off to the desert and did some crazy fasting shit and ended up dying, poor guy. But that's neither here nor there. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So tell me about the main event of UFC on Fox.
The main event was, I know a couple of people that were hyping up Jessica Pena versus Shevchenko, what's her first name? I don't even know her first name
Valentina.
very well. Valentina Shevchenko. Well, that was impressive. Also, Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, we've seen her in a pretty good role in UFC, but everybody had Jessica Pena as a favorite for this match. I mean, she's been also on a pretty hot roll, but Shevchenko looked really good, man. And although Pena did put up a great fight, it was all at the end. It was Shevchenko with the submission at the end. It was beautifully done, beautifully executed. She controlled the fight in the second round. I think Jessica Pena came out guns blazing. She just simply didn't control her cardio very well, and Shevchenko took advantage of it.
Very possible. I do think that Jessica Pena may have underestimated Valentina Shevchenko. She thought that it was going to be easy to take her down. It wasn't. In the second round, like you mentioned, she put absolutely everything into that takedown to the point where she was basically hanging off Shevchenko's shoulders while Valentina just kind of moved away, and she physically dragged Jessica Pena, a few feet before, kind of leaning on the cage. And after that, the efforts to take her down, and that was pretty much all she wrote. It just kind of went down from there. But I think, from hearing her talk in interviews, from just seeing the fight in general and the way that she approached it, I think my unofficial opinion is that she just took her too lightly. She thought it was going to be kind of a slam dunk, and she was just looking forward to, being able to challenge for a title fight. And unfortunately for her, it didn't work out, and I think that this pushes her way back from title contention. So after talking all that, saying that you wouldn't do it unless it was for the title, you kind of fall back. However, something that I did hear her say was she wasn't ever thinking that she was going to lose this fight, but she did mention how Holly Holm actually lost 2 fights, and now she's in contention to be the first 145-pound champion for the ladies or the female division. So she says, well, if she can do it, I can lose this fight and potentially still challenge at 145, because it's basically open season in that whole division.
Yeah, all these undefeated records and all these win streaks in UFC lately have people thinking that if you lose, like, you're done. Especially the women. Have you noticed how emotional these women get when they lose? It's crazy. So she has, yeah, maybe it's because they're women, but Jessica Pena clearly still has way ahead of her. Ah, man, I love your reaction. But Jessica Pena clearly has a whole road ahead of her. She can still compete for this 135 belt anyway, so it's I don't think it's a problem that she lost. But Shevchenko did put a pretty nice armbar on her, and the story now is Shevchenko's going to get to fight Amanda Nunes. Does she have what it takes to beat Amanda? Because Amanda looks pretty complete, man. At the end of the day, I didn't see anything from neither of them that would make me think that these girls would actually be a challenge for Amanda Nunes.
Styles make fights. It depends how they approach it. Amanda Nunes has a lot of strength in her punches. She said after the Ronda Rousey fight, one of the things that she said to the coaches as the coach is walking away is like, how dare you tell Ronda to challenge me in striking? I'm the best striker in this division. And I'm hard pressed to find someone who's better at it than her right now. Valentina Shevchenko's strength in this fight should have been the striking, and it was pretty easy for Jessica Pena to kind of crowd her and get into the zone where she couldn't really get punched with any kind of like force. Even if you're up close, it's going to be hard for you to like extend on any sort of punches. So it was very, very easy for Jessica Pena to kind of circumvent that, get right in there in between where she could strike. And it made the striking ineffective. And Valentina actually took advantage of certain situations. One of them was Jessica trying to get some knees in where she kind of cupped under the knee and used that for a takedown. And then the situation that ultimately led to losing the fight was something similar where, Jessica tried to take her down by her weight, ended up, losing the scramble. Valentina took position and got that armbar. Again, she didn't look that impressive to me. I don't think that she has a chance. against Amanda Nunes, especially not if she wants to go out there and just throw bombs. I think outside of Cyborg, Amanda Nunes may be the strongest female in that division.
Yeah, Cyborg right now doesn't even have a division, so let's not even mention her. But yeah, Amanda's pretty complete, man. But it'll be fun, and finally we have something new. We're starting to move past the Ronda Rousey hype. Even after Ronda Rousey lost, everybody was like, when is Rousey going to come back? It all ended up in Rousey. Now we have closure. Dana White said Rousey probably won't come back. We have closure. Misha Tate is out also. A lot of new blood in the division. I can't wait to see what happens, man.
It's time to promote new faces, and I actually like if Amanda Nunes gets a strong, steady push. If they put promoting dollars behind her, she seems like a really fun, female fighter to put your division behind. She's a really fun follow on Instagram. I don't follow her necessarily, but I get the highlights, and from what I see there, she's just hilarious.
She's pretty cool.
I didn't like that she took back that, whatever she said to Ronda Rousey. It's like, whatever, man. I don't want to hear that.
I think she felt bad. I think she felt bad because Ronda retired.
Fuck that. Why you gotta feel
Ronda's
bad?
Gonna retire.
Why the hell did you have to feel bad for beating the hell out of your opponent? I mean, at the end of the day, after it was all said and done, they hugged, they did the whole sportsmanship, they shook hands, they did the whole thing. That's like the only real obligation that you have there. But after that, don't feel bad about what you said. You came out, you said you're going to kick her ass, you kicked her ass, and that was it. I don't think there was a lot of...
I think she apologized for her comments and her reactions after the fight, not before the fight. She kept posting things on Instagram making fun of Ronda Rousey, a lot of them, by the way, because I do follow her on Instagram. Even parts of her
She didn't do them. I mean, if you forward or repost something, it's funny. I thought they were funny. I thought they were opportune, and we need more people with more personality. For what it was worth, Ronda Rousey came off as a cocky bitch, and I'm sorry to say that. I don't want to offend any listeners.
It's true.
But
no, but is it true?
Yeah, like there's a point where it just becomes like downright arrogant, talking about she can beat male fighters. I'm better than anyone in the world, and she went away, did some movies or whatever, and time just kind of passed her by, and better fighters came. She was running that division as long as there was no competition, and that's pretty much all she wrote for Ronda Rousey. If she doesn't return, she's going to go down as a legend. She'll be UFC Hall of Fame. Whatever her record is, 11-2, doesn't sound as good as 13-0, but take what you can get. She's fairly young. She can go off and have Travis Brown babies if that's what she wants to do. She can lead a full life and, take advantage of the fact that you have, a following and some sex appeal and people that, want to still invest money, time, movie roles in you. Live your life outside of fighting. I think that and this is something we run into often, I think for as little money as UFC is paying fighters, UFC or even MMA should only be a stepping stone to the next part of your life, the next chapter of your career.
I agree.
Whether that be, taking that fame, winning a championship, hanging it up in some gym and calling it, the flu whatever gym, that there has to be a goal, an end game after MMA. This can't be something that you're doing until you're 40 plus. No offense to fighters like Anderson Silva and Dan Henderson, but at this point, they're basically glorified punching bags.
Yeah, and Ronda Rousey, I mean, it's not just movies. Maybe she can do reality shows. Maybe she can get into WWE. Who knows? She has a whole career ahead of her.
Maybe she can please Joel Vasquez and go into porno. Who knows?
Go into porno. I was a huge Rousey supporter, but to be honest, I'm kind of happy that the whole movie already ended. And I think Amanda Nunes is a perfect person, like you said, to, lead the way in this division in the future. Hopefully it stays that way, man. But talking about burnt-out fighters like Ronda Rousey, let's talk a little bit about John Jones, bro. John Jones, after another suspension, Dana White said he's going to get another title fight.
He will
versus Cormier.
He will fight. Well, not necessarily. He's going to fight the winner of Cormier Anthony Rumble Johnson. So it's not a slam dunk.
John Jones like the champion. So they're still treating him like the champion.
Well, they're treating him like a number one contender, but outside of Rumble Johnson, who would you put ahead of John Jones? Even having not fought for however long he didn't fight for, who would you put ahead of John Jones in terms of ranking, in terms of making money, in terms of everything that UFC cares about?
No, you're right. I mean, you're not going to find anybody over John Jones anywhere. I mean, the truth of the matter is John Jones is still one of the top fighters pound for pound. No matter how many suspensions this guy gets, it's John Jones that we're talking about. And when he fought OSP, even though he seemed a little rusty, he still looked like John Jones. I mean, I don't trust Bader, Glover Teixeira, Gustafsson. All these guys are already they're already. I don't think they're not really competition.
They're all kind of flash on the pans, kind of on the decline. They'll show up, they'll win some mid-card fights, and when it's time to challenge, they'll fall a step short. They'll lose right before they get a title fight. In the case of a Ryan Bader, he loses right before a title fight, and then whoever beat him gets to fight the champion, and it's whatever for Ryan Bader. And I'm just using his name. It could have been any one of them. Fill in the blanks with any one of those other names.
I'll tell you this much though. I've been dying to see the Cormier John Jones rematch because of because it's.
I haven't.
I think there's legit distaste between both of these guys, but
they didn't show it when they fought. More than that, I remember a 5-round hug fest. All they did was grab each other and kind of breathe on each other's faces and whatever, and whatever you do to kind of wear down your opponent. I didn't see a lot of striking. I didn't see any kind of striking with any. I didn't see any sort of passion to try to win that fight.
Well, it's like we talked about before. These experienced fighters, when they face each other, they respect themselves so much.
They're too careful.
They're too careful, and the fight turns out to be boring. We've seen this too many times. I'd rather see the unexperienced guys, or I'd rather see crazy maniacs like Rumble Johnson. That's a fight I've always wanted to see, Rumble Johnson versus John Jones. So I've always liked Cormier, but I can't believe I'm going to be rooting against him because although I would love to see that rematch, I'd rather see, finally, Anthony Johnson versus John Jones. That's a fight that everybody has been wanting to see.
I totally agree. I want to see it, if nothing else, just because it's a new thing. All right, so I think we spent enough time on UFC on a card that I didn't think was particularly interesting. I don't know if Andrei Arlovski, I want to mention this, if Andrei Arlovski was necessarily the favorite in that fight, but that dude he fought, I'm hearing really, really good things about him. For Francis Ngannou, he looks like a 30-year-old. Yeah, go ahead.
He looks like he came out of an African jail, bro. It's insane. This guy looks... He's a beast. It's amazing, man.
Oh, I'm hearing that he's only 30 years old. He basically escaped, for lack of a better word, Africa to land in France, and when he didn't have a place to live, he basically found shelter in a boxing gym, and he told them, teach me how to box, and got mixed up with some people that taught him MMA. They just saw that he was such a genetic freak that they said, man, you'd be wasting your talents in boxing. Little did they know that he probably would have made more money in boxing. But in MMA, he is looking like the legit next big thing. If he can only get, a little more quickness, become a little lighter on his feet, a little less plodding, he would be a real threat to contend with, because the dude just looks head and shoulders stronger than anyone else. Like
he reminds me of Rumble.
Yeah,
it's just pure power.
It's like Rumble at heavyweight. That's really scary.
On steroids.
Oh, wait.
I'm not saying he's on. I'm not saying he's on steroids. I'm saying this guy is such a physical specimen. He looks like Rumble Johnson heavyweight on steroids.
Dude, you got to choose your words a little bit better. We're talking about MMA and steroids.
The funny thing is, man, I said it. I don't care. The funny thing is, this guy he barely hit Arlovski. It was like he grazed him through the top of his head, and Arlovski blacked out. That tells you the amount of power this guy has. He looks like he's a fusion between two NFL defensive linemen. It's insane.
All right, so for you guys that are hearing about this guy for the very first time through listening to the Unofficial Commentators, if possible, try to find the UFC on Fox card and see the physical freak we're talking about. His name is Francis Ngannou, and if nothing else, you heard it here first. This is the next big thing to the UFC heavyweights. You mentioned Rumble a couple times. I want to talk about, just very briefly, about the Royal Rumble. I know that this isn't something that you necessarily have a lot of enthusiasm about, but I can't think of anyone who is my age that at some point didn't have any affinity for, professional wrestling. So the Royal Rumble celebrated his 30th edition this weekend as well, this last Sunday. I'm just going to mention some.
Randy Orton won.
He did win the Rumble match itself. So I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. John Cena becomes a 16-time world champion. That has, for a very long time, been a record held by Ric Flair and unmatched by anyone else. And now it's matched. John Cena is a 16-time world champion. He's been wrestling for about 16 years. I think Ric Flair has honestly been in the game a lot longer than that. I think he's been wrestling since the 70s. And there's no way in heck that Ric Flair ever wins another championship anymore unless they make a geriatric division. But it's looking like it's going to be a shared record for a really, really long time going forward. You are correct. Randy Orton did win the Royal Rumble match. A lot of boos and sighs and disbelief. I didn't like Randy Orton winning the Royal Rumble, but I'll tell you one thing. They succeeded in two things. They succeeded in surprising us because I don't think anyone had Randy Orton winning. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the point of Royal Rumble is to set up the road to WrestleMania, which is like the big ticket card for wrestling, for professional wrestling. So by having Randy Orton win, he automatically gets a shot at the title, and the title currently held by John Cena. Is this really like a chapter that we want to revisit? Haven't we done this enough? So there's still time between now and WrestleMania for the title to change hands again. And it wouldn't hurt the brand of John Cena if he loses it because, not all of his title runs have been that long to begin with. But if it turns out that it's again another Randy Orton John Cena, it would be really disappointing for fans of professional wrestling.
I was actually, I'm seeing that WWE's really rebuilding this Goldberg-Brock Lesnar rivalry. I was hoping they would be the last two in the ring in Royal Rumble and have one of them win. That would have been fun.
No, you can't do that because, like I just said, if one of those two wins the Royal Rumble, they challenge for a title. And neither one of those two is going to have a title come WrestleMania. So it wouldn't help the feud if one of those two wins. So it kind of was what it was. Goldberg eliminates Brock Lesnar. That sets up the road to WrestleMania where they both face each other at the big marquee event. Undertaker, supposedly, it was looking like he was going to feud with John Cena, but Roman Reigns eliminates him and then gives him a stare down. So now that may be the match that they're going to be working on, kind of road to WrestleMania. And as it stands, it's going to be John Cena, Randy Orton, but like I said before, things could change. They could have gone in so many different directions. I'm kind of disappointed that the Royal Rumble match itself did not have any more surprises. They relied totally on their current roster of superstars. Royal Rumble, they usually, use one of those 30 spots to either showcase a legend that potentially could be working his way into the WWE Hall of Fame. In this year in particular, it was looking like maybe Kurt Angle was going to have an appearance. That didn't happen. They used the Royal Rumble to call up certain professional wrestlers from the what they consider basically the minor leagues, which is the NXT for wrestling, and no one really came up except with the exception of Ty Dillinger, but his presence wasn't really felt. He just came out. It was a big opening, so welcome to WWE main roster, but other than that, he just kind of got tossed out unceremoniously. Finn Balor is a wrestler that is injured, and a lot of people were not only expecting him to return for Royal Rumble, but also to win it and set up a very long-awaited match between him and Raw champion Kevin Owens. That didn't happen either, so not a whole lot of surprises. Kevin Owens retains, by the way, with the help of Braun Strowman, which is totally inexplicable to me anyway. At this stage in my life, I'm kind of a casual fan. I only watch the big events, and I'm perplexed by how most of this turned out. So that's it. Those are my couple of minutes on the Royal Rumble. We can move on to something else.
No man, I've heard a lot about Royal Rumble. It's fine. I'm gonna have to start to look more into wrestling, right? So I can like comment more on these sort of things.
It is what it is. Wrestling, professional wrestling, kind of like baseball. It's more fun to talk about and discuss and kind of project the direction it's going than it is to actually watch it. If I have to compare it to anything, I'd compare it to like baseball. Like, I don't actually like watching the games, but to project, like, if this team wins this many games, if you trade this player to this team, kind of to talk about it and the nostalgia you feel is more fun than actually watching the product. But I will not discourage you, if you have the time, to go in and watch some wrestling. I mean, why the hell not?
Okay.
And if you really enjoy the wrestling product, I mean, I know that a lot is mentioned about the WWE, and you have your ESPN connections. ESPN and WWE have a partnership. But if you really like wrestling product and you like seeing the high spots, as they call them, I also watch Lucha Underground. Man, it's a lot of fun to watch that. A lot of mass wrestlers, a lot of like tradition.
Lucha Underground?
Dude, but Lucha Underground
Mexican.
It is Mexican, for the most part. It plays
really?
on the El Rey network, which is a Robert Rodriguez network. And the kind of the background on it is Mexican, but it's half honest telenovela with like scripts and things and segments between actual fights, and then whatever we set up outside the ring, we settle in the ring. It's a whole lot of fun if you follow it. If you follow it week to week, kind of like you would with a novela, it's a whole bunch of fun.
Oh man, awesome! That does sound fun.
It is.
Just for the name, Lucha Underground.
All right, so remember, guys, to follow us on YouTube, Unofficial Commentators, on Podomatic, the Unofficial Commentators, on Twitter, at UC_podcast, at Unofficial Commentators on Instagram, Unofficial Commentators, the Facebook website, where we post our videos and comments and start up some conversations. And also, big shout out to Carlos Ravelo, who gave us some topics to discuss this week, by shooting us an email at unofficialcommentators@gmail.com. So another thing that happened this week, and this week is considered a slow sports week because after a grueling football season, there is a long 2-week break of football right before the Super Bowl, and we've managed to fill in the gaps with a lot of Cleveland Cavalier talk. So the Cavaliers aren't doing great this month at least. Last I checked, they were 7-9, and they were playing against Minnesota today. I don't totally remember how that ended up. Oh, actually, no. I do see how it ended up. The Cavaliers whooped that mini butt, 125-97. So maybe they're back on the winning trails. But most of the talk was revolving around the fact that LeBron James had an atypical LeBron James kind of meltdown where he was quoted with this curse-laden comments about wanting a playmaker, and then getting on the owner about not spending enough money to create a championship team, if that's what we want to do. And then after the whining, I'm going to do some air quotes for the whining. After the whining, Charles Barkley kind of got on him for being whiny and complaining and saying that he should basically win with what he has and stop complaining about not having enough. And that kind of led to a war of words that led to LeBron airing out a lot of Charles Barkley's laundry in public. Not that we didn't know many of these things before, but where do you stand on this whole LeBron James versus Charles Barkley drama?
It's not even fair that I get to comment on LeBron James. Everybody's like, oh, you're just a big LeBron fan, but I'm glad he did it, man. LeBron James can do no right. Everything he does is wrong. Everything he does is scrutinized. It doesn't matter what he does. He's been a role model. He's been pretty much a perfect citizen his entire NBA career. He's been perfect to the NBA. No fines, nothing. The guy barely even gets a flagrant foul. And he's still the evil guy for some reason. No matter what he does, he wins a chip back for his team. It's still bad. He's a returning champion.
For his team, for his city, everything.
See, and I'm not saying that Barkley's comments were far-fetched or inappropriate. I think they were right in a way. But what I'm trying to come here is like LeBron James. I think he should have done this a long time ago. It's about goddamn time he stands up for himself instead of being so political all the time and trying to give the right answer. Because this is getting out of hand, man. Everything he does is wrong. Now everybody, and I loved what Shaquille O'Neal did to Charles Barkley when he said that. Barkley was like, me and Kenny, we've been in championship teams, in repeating championship teams. You have not. You have no idea what it takes to repeat. Because he's like, just play with what you got.
Paki.
Everybody's saying just
hold on. I see that you're really.
You think it's easy to play with what you got?
Time out. You seem really animated, and you're breaking up here. I'm going to have to ask you to do that whole thing over.
Pero se arregló ya.
Yeah, right now it looks like it's better.
All right.
So you really like what
From the
Shaq
beginning?
did? Oh, no. You really like what Shaq did to Charles Barkley?
I really love what Shaquille O'Neal told Charles Barkley. He said, hey, Charles, only me and Kenny have been on repeating championship teams. You have not. You have no idea what it takes to repeat. And it's got to be extremely stressing for LeBron James. Everybody's like, just play with what you got. Why are you asking for more? Don't you have enough? Well, the competing team on the West that had the best regular season record of all time last year and almost beat him in the finals in 5 games. What happened?
Of all time, I'm agree with you.
Yeah, the best regular season team of all time. They had the record. And these guys add Kevin Durant, and LeBron James loses players from last year. Oh, they added Kyle Korver. Well, Cleveland saved money by adding Kyle Korver, and they needed Kyle Korver because J.R. Smith is out. So LeBron James is, again, averaging more minutes than anybody else in the NBA. He's playing the most out of everybody. And when he takes a game off, they get on his case too. Like if Popovich didn't do that his entire career with Duncan and all the other guys, nobody cared there. But why do they care about LeBron James? So according to what I'm seeing, is everybody wants LeBron James to play all 82 games, to be the backup center and the backup point guard, how he's doing right now. And they want him to be the starting small forward. And they want him to play all the minutes. And they want him to repeat a championship, even though the team that's coming for him has 4 superstars. Tell me about that. Why is it wrong that he vents?
At point guard, Bugs Bunny. At shooting guard, Bugs Bunny. At small forward, Bugs Bunny. At power forward, Bugs Bunny. At center, Bugs Bunny.
Oh, my God.
12th man off the bench,
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny. Coaching, Bugs Bunny. Announcing this match, Bugs Bunny. Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening, man. LeBron is having to become the jack of all trades by force. They're making him play every single position every single night. And at the expense of sounding like a bronze sexual, what the hell did Charles Barkley do after 93 when his stacked roster wasn't good enough to beat Mr. Michael Jordan and his Bulls? Well, he just kind of toughed it out for a year or two, and then he moved over to the two-time defending champion Houston Rockets, and he managed to ask for a trade similar to the Carmelo trade where they depleted their roster to be able to fit him in there. And then when he finally gets to the Rockets, they're not good enough to beat Michael Jordan again. I mean, they didn't make it to the finals. They didn't even, get that far. But, they were always in the shadow, or he was always in the shadow of a one Mr. Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
So when your team wasn't good enough to win, what did you do? You wanted more, and you went and got more, and that wasn't enough. So, those who live in a glass house should not throw stones.
And here's a message for all these LeBron haters that are saying this nonsense that I don't understand where it's coming from. If you're the best player in the world, why don't you do it on your own? Well, this isn't tennis, people. What are you talking about? Do it on your own. Nobody does it on their own. And LeBron already has 3 championships. He's still trying. What does he have to prove to you people? Jesus Christ, come on.
Well, speaking of not doing it on your own, it looks like there's an open position for a playmaker in Cleveland, and they're having a free agent tryout. Possible candidates for this free agent tryout are Mario Chalmers, who used to play with LeBron James, Kirk Heinrich, who had his best years playing with the Chicago Bulls, and Lance Stevenson, 6'5" point guard, is he? A point guard that can play a lot of different positions, anywhere from point guard to small forward, really versatile player. What do you think all these players have to add to this roster, if anything?
Well, any of them would add to the roster since they're missing a roster spot. But in order of importance, I'll be really brief here, or in order of who I think fits best, I love Lance Stevenson.
Yes.
Besides the fact that they've had some personal issues, him and LeBron, blowing to the ear, his versatility, the word that you said, is key here to how he matches up in Cleveland. I think he'd be great coming off the bench. He's a guy that needs the ball in his hands, and that's exactly what LeBron needs right now, a guy that can have the ball in his hand when Kyrie's out and when he is exhausted. And not just that, he also adds on defense, and he could defend multiple positions, not just one. So I really like Lance Stevenson, and not to mention that Lance Stevenson is the only one out of all of those that has actually played this year. He started the year in New Orleans, so he's probably going to be in better game shape. After that, I like Kirk Heinrich, assuming he's in shape and assuming he's not older than the last time he played, because he has a pretty decent three.
Wait, how the hell do you assume he's not older? He's obviously older.
Yeah, obviously he's older, but you know what I mean. I mean, if he's
I don't know what you mean.
Slower,
assuming he's not older.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, since he's been rested, maybe he doesn't come back older, but if he comes back if he was playing, then I don't think he could do much. His defense is a little suspect, but he's a pretty good distributor. He can also help LeBron play make. And finally, Mario Chalmers. Well, Mario Chalmers will be a good guy to get in there and start hitting people and fouling people, and maybe hitting some threes, but I always hated Mario Chalmers when he was in the Heat with LeBron. I think he was a pain in the butt. I don't like him for Cleveland either, but he's better than nothing. That's all.
Let me go back to front. So Mario Chalmers was a lightning rod in Miami. So whenever it got really testy between the dudes that LeBron couldn't go up and bark to, he couldn't yell at Wade, he couldn't yell at Bosh, so his outlet was to go and yell at Mario Chalmers. So that kind of seemed to calm him down. Chalmers was unfazed by that. He still thought he was the best player on that team, no matter what the hell LeBron was yelling at him. He is a good ball handler. He's a gritty defender, and he has opportune shot taking. However, the reason why he's not currently in the NBA is because he's coming off a severe injury, and I'm having trouble remembering. I'm sorry, guys, I didn't fact check. It's either an Achilles or it's an ACL. Whichever one of the two is considered worse, you be the judge. But those are really tough injuries to come back from. I think that Kirk Heinrich's defense is pretty good from the perspective of staying in front of players. He's a good ball handler. He's a distributor, and like you said, he can shoot the three-pointer. He's obviously going to be older. His lateral movement isn't the best to try to defend, so he may be a defensive liability, even though I think he's not as suspect as you considered him. Of the three options, he may be the weakest defender. And then we got Lance Stevenson. I also believe that this is the best fit. Cleveland has a way of dealing with crazy. They may be able to settle Lance Stevenson down. Now, at some point, J.R. Smith is going to come back, and I can't even think of the prospect of having J.R. Smith and Lance Stevenson on the same team. That is going to be an insane movie. But in the meantime, he is, these three possibilities, the playmaker that they're looking for. They're not just looking for a ball handler.
Chris Anderson was healthy too.
But I don't. Chris Anderson just kind of looks crazy. I mean, there's something to J.R. Smith.
He's just pretty crazy.
Untying a free throw shooter's sneakers and Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear. Like, what the hell? That's just a new kind of crazy that the NBA isn't ready for. If they do that, and it looks like they're going to cut Chris Anderson because he's not going to be healthy for the remainder of the year, they should probably work out a deal to get Ron Artest there too, and just kind of be like the psychotherapist for these guys. But again, getting back to actual basketball, Lance Stevenson is the proven playmaker, not just ball handler, not just relieve LeBron of bringing the ball down the court and setting up a play, but the actual make a play when you have nothing and no one available, I would count on Lance Stevenson to do that. And Lance Stevenson hasn't looked great in his last few destinations, but let's not forget, he's still 6'5", he's still very versatile, he still knows how to move the ball. He did not forget how to play basketball, he just hasn't had the correct opportunity. I think that he would thrive in Cleveland.
Yeah, and everywhere that they put him ever since he left Indiana has been with the prospect of him being like a starter or a main part of that team. Him coming in as a role player, as what he was in Indiana, I think would be a great fit for him too.
All right, so we talked about Cleveland's woes, and while that's happening, the Sixers are on a rise, man. Sixers are looking great the last few games. Is it time that we finally begin to trust the process?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to spend much time talking about the Sixers because they're still a bottom feeder team, but when you have such a bad team, been drafting at the top of the draft every year, and finally you're seeing some competitiveness out of them, well, first one you got to give credit to, obviously, is Joel Embiid. That's the easy answer. But he's hurt now, so let's see how they work without him. But T.J. McConnell has also been coming up pretty good. I've liked what I've seen from him, by the way. Cavs tried to get him, but the Sixers denied. Robert Covington, a nice vet, has been able to give some good production to the Sixers as well. And you got to love the combination of Nerlens and Jahlil Okafor. One can't defend, one is not that great scorer, but they balance each other out pretty good. And, of course, the process, man, Joel Embiid. This guy is a machine. And Joel Embiid is not only a good rookie. Joel Embiid is here to stay. Joel Embiid is probably the best big man I've seen in a while. I mean, I thought Anthony Davis was going to be the best big man for a while, but Joel Embiid looks even better. He's averaging crazy numbers in the limited minutes. So when they take the chains off this guy, it's going to be fun to see in the NBA. You know, he has this thing. I was talking about this the other day. There's like some players that they have like this mystique around them. Like they have just this aura that they're not only are they superstars, but they help transform a culture of a team, and they actually give you wins. Because you got great players like Russell Westbrook, but there's just something not there that doesn't give you the wins. Sorry, Jay, no disrespect to your boy. But then you got guys like LeBron.
He's the human turbo button, sir.
Yeah, he is. You have D-Wade back in his better days. Yeah. Well, you know, to hate on me also, Carmelo doesn't have that aura that I'm talking about. But you have old D-Wade, LeBron, Kevin Durant has it, Steph Curry has it. You know, James Harden now, he seems to have it. It's like these guys, when they get on the court, it's like the entire team transforms, and it just gives you hope. And I see Joel Embiid being that type of player also.
Some people grow into a leadership role, and I think that's what you're describing, especially when you mentioned James Harden, in that he was always kind of like a system guy, just kind of, you know, I'm here to score my points and take a flop and shoot a bunch of free throws. But now with the title of point guard, he's kind of grown into a leader. So that's kind of what you're seeing there. I don't know if he's any more mature or anything, but you're definitely seeing him grow into that leadership role.
Yeah, definitely. And Embiid, well, Embiid, I think he has that. It's like right now we're seeing Anthony Davis, right? He's putting up crazy numbers, but they don't translate to wins.
Is he still putting up crazy numbers?
Kevin Love did the same thing in Minnesota. Yeah, he is. Kevin Love did the same thing in Minnesota. Boogie Cousins does it in Sacramento, but it's just like, yeah, your team's still not that good. But there's just some players that, even if they're alone, you're like, these guys can still be competitive. Embiid has that. I can't wait to see the Sixers next year.
The return of the big man, back like they never left. Projecting out a few years, man, I'm falling heads over heels in basketball man crush love for Karl Anthony Towns, man. Every time I see that guy play, he looks better than the last time. And it's sad to say, you know, we have a lot of stock put into Anthony Davis, but the brow stock is quickly dropping. I would be remiss if I don't mention that the Miami Heat, who are now 20-30, have won 9 games in a row. That is pretty impressive. Finally,
shout out to Omar and Marcus, the new baby coming out.
Oh man, yes, that's a very big deal. Sorry that we didn't mention it. So Omar, regular contributor to the show. He either contributes content through the chat, and he's also appeared in my absence on the Unofficial Commentators podcast. Had a new baby Marcus.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to this world. Welcome to the Unofficial Commentators family. And speaking of which, man, I have not mentioned this, and this is a big party foul on my behalf. He was born the day after your birthday, sir. So happy birthday, Paki. How does it feel, man, to be in your 30s? Did you wake up and find hair in weird places?
Have you seen? Do you see South Park?
Yes, I watch it occasionally.
All right, so have you seen this episode where Stan is his birthday, and then everything smells and looks like shit?
Okay.
You've never seen that episode? It turns out that he became a teenager, right? So now everything is shit. Everything that everybody talks is shit. Everything bothers him. I kind of feel the same way about turning 30.
You know what? I hadn't considered that, but for the last couple of years, and even considering that we do a podcast that focuses on sports, that's kind of what I feel, man. It's like, what am I watching? This is just shit. It may be the curse of the 30s, like something you just get that when you turn 30, everything just smells like shit. But with that being said, happy birthday. Welcome to your 30s. It only gets better at fucking 40.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't want to think about how everything smells at 40.
God darn it. Woo, man. So that's that. One more thing I want to mention before we move on.
I think we got to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But before that, let me just mention one thing that happened right before we started recording. And I don't know if you got a chance to check up on this. So my cousin Juan says, yeah, the Bulls look like they want to trade Jimmy Butler, and the Knicks look desperate to trade Carmelo Anthony. Why don't they just trade Jimmy Butler for Carmelo Anthony? Man, I would take that shit in a heartbeat. I don't know, but it's good. It's fun to fantasize. I would do that in a heartbeat. Let's get the new Jimmy Butler.
Knicks, of course you would.
Fuck yes. Get him in there. I mean,
now if you're Chicago, why would you do it if you're the Bulls?
I mean,
it'll probably make Wade happier. Wade will probably feel happy with that Carmelo.
Right, with one of his friends there. I want to check something. Hold on. Keep talking, because this dead air while I'm looking for something.
There have to be, in order for that to happen, the Knicks would probably have to bite on part of Carmelo's salary, and they would have to give up draft picks, which clearly Phil Jackson does not want to give up. And they would probably have to throw in somebody else also. Hopefully Joakim Noah. That'd be great. But again, that'd be too much salary. I don't see it happening. But it would be interesting. I'd love to see it. I think Jimmy Butler would be a great fit for the Knicks, as long as we get another point guard. Maybe we can throw Derrick Rose in there, and Derrick Rose goes back, and they can get rid of Rondo.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. The money doesn't really work.
Any way you look at it, it's not going to happen. I think Carmelo, if he does end up being traded from New York, he's going to get traded for practically nothing. New York is just trying to get rid of that salary, start over, build around Porzingis.
All right, so this is why I think it would work, right? So you don't recognize Rondo as a big point scorer, but he's a good distributor, right? He kind of dominates the ball. He can get to the rim, and he moves it. And, Carmelo Anthony to be a big scorer. So, passer to scorer. It's a new age John Stockton, Karl Malone. So, currently the Knicks, with their current roster, which we don't think too highly of, are ranked number 12 of all the basketball teams in scoring. They're scoring 105 points per game. And their defense is garbage. The Bulls are scoring about 101 points per game, and that's only good for 23rd out of 30 teams in the NBA. So trade that if you're the Bulls, get your points up, and then the Knicks have a two-way player who plays more than one position, who's younger, who kind of fits a more up-tempo scheme, who can do a few more things. they basically free up any forward position that Porzingis wants to play and get Joakim Noah or Kyle O'Quinn or whoever they want to be the bruiser to play center for the Knicks. I don't think that this has been discussed enough. Man, shout out to the incredible, beautiful mind of Cousin Juan when he's on the stuff. And
shout out to the report card as well, Cousin Juan's podcast. We got to shout him out, man.
We don't have to, but it's always good to do so. So shout out Cousin Juan. Yes, they're doing big things over there. They got their first major sponsor. Check out the Unofficial Commentators Facebook page. I extended an invitation to one of their sponsors, so go check that out. And with that being said, I'm going to close the point there, but I think that this is something that if I'm the Knicks, I would explore. Get away from all the talk of Los Angeles or Cleveland. God knows Carmelo doesn't want to move to Cleveland. He doesn't want to move his family there. But I'm pretty sure that Chicago's market is big enough where he would still make an impact, and also he would his family, and by his family I mean Lala, will still be in a major city. Granted, it's really cold, but it's not like it's any less cold here in New York. And he will get a chance to rock that red jersey and do a whole new level of colorways for the Carmelo Anthony sneakers, since he's already on the Jordan brand. So why the heck not? All right, so that's everything I had to say about basketball, man.